Good evening. Jacob Field speaking here. I'm just doing a really quick audio and visual check. If I could just get you to confirm in the chat bar on the right-hand side of your screen that you can see and hear correctly. You should be seeing a couple of meerkats on the image, which is our default kickoff slide. And obviously I've been talking for a few seconds. I will share a link in a moment in the chat bar, which will allow you to log directly into YouTube to view the Hangout tonight. Thanks, Haley. 10 out of 10 to view the recording live via YouTube, which might be a lot clearer in terms of the recording and the visual. So I'll just put it on pause. I'll wait for some late arrivals to come. Lots of exciting things to get through tonight, so I'll wait for everyone to arrive. It won't be a moment. Okay, let's kick off. I have had a quick sound and video check for you all. Lots of yeses, okay, I can hear and see okay. A couple of you, Bill, lousy resolution. A couple of others that you're having some issues with resolution, etc. If that is the case, try the reset or refresh button down the bottom of your browser. Try resizing your browser window, and it might grab onto a different site resolution feed. Otherwise, I've just shared a link there in the chat bar, which will take you straight over to YouTube. Bill Allfix as a smiley face there. Yeah, that link will take you straight over to YouTube, and that should be a perfect resolution video over there. With a lot on the line who are saying they're having no issues, it may be down to your connection. So if you are still having issues, potentially close other browser windows, YouTube's, Netflix, or whatever else might be on. Let's jump right in. I do apologize about the late start. Lots of really awesome content to get through tonight. What we've been seeing in July with our research and extractions there, what areas are looking like they are potentially set for growth in the second half of 2016. Yeah, if you've got any questions throughout this evening, jump over in the chat bar and do get involved. I'd love to hear from you. I will be having an extended question and answer session at the end of this evening. And I've just had some yes, and some really exciting news as well, with some new features that we've been working on and releasing in the next coming days. So I'll jump right in. Lots to cover. I do apologise about the late start once again. So a little bit about me. I have been investing in property for about 15 years, investing right back in the early 2000s down here in Tassie, which is where I'm from and based. I would describe myself, I suppose, as a DIY property investor. Love property, immersing myself in it, talking with other investors, researching, and to my own end, Ripehouse was formed in 2011 to help in my education and my own research, and now I've opened it up in the last few years to help other investors. So we're all working together, investors, investors helping each other and joining together with research and comments and trying to empower each other, I suppose, to make clear and confident decisions together. I'm going to jump through these introductory slides tonight a little bit quicker than usual because we've got a lot of meat to get to. So for those of you that are regulars, yeah, there's probably a lot of this that you've seen before. I will try and mix it up a little bit and include some new stuff that you haven't seen and some new approaches tonight. So we are days away from launching our Pinpoint Predictions July report. With that data and the extractions from June, we haven't really seen any major changes with new LGAs emerging or major LGAs dropping out. It's been a slight reshuffling in the top 20 lists for our different categories of growth and outcomes. Yeah, there has been some realignment, but it's still firmly around the Brisbane area, Victoria and Tassie, punching above its weight down here. So I will be going into investor interest research in a moment. I suppose I've just got a point there around I've been asked a lot of questions in the last couple of weeks, or last couple of days, sorry, about the Britain exiting the EU. And yeah, it's funny because I'm sort of I wouldn't sort of get close to classifying myself as someone who would understand all of the thousands of variables that would come together to work out how that exit will potentially affect Australian property. And then even to answer that question, which I've seen there's a lot of clickbait out there in the media, yeah, and blogs and Facebook, etc., is around generalizations and statements that really don't mean much. And I suppose there'll be thousands, and this is what I always come back to in my comments, there'll potentially be thousands of effects for the exit across Australia at any one time, with all different markets moving in different directions for different reasons. They all potentially could be affected in different ways. So your growth markets where you've got amazing infrastructure spend and population pressure around Brisbane satellite areas may be affected differently to 2 million purchase price, middle to upper market Sydney, as an example. That's just something I like to think about when I see these major storylines and the clickbait out there, just digging a little bit deeper. Tonight, we're going to be going through 3 growth locations. They are derived from our July report. There may be, you have heard of them and me speaking of them apart. 2 of the 3. A third one I haven't spoken of this year. It's a bit of a special one. The growth characteristics may not be quite as high as some of the other suburbs usually covered in our report, but it's great for renovate for profit, and it has been a stayer, which a lot of investors have been using the Ripehouse platform for the last 18 months or so, investing in and around there. So lots more to come on those. And as I've mentioned and promised, there's a big announcement coming a little bit later on. Do stick around for that, and it's really exciting. We're always trying to improve and develop the product, and really looking forward to getting you guys using and interacting with the new features and functionality, and that's building towards where we're really going with some amazing changes, I suppose, and improvements to help you invest moving forward. Look, this is just, I'm going to go through this really quickly. I am monitoring chat as well as we're going. I like to do these webcasts, controlling everything and doing things. It's difficult to have multiple people in different tangents. So I'm monitoring chat. If you've got any questions at any time, jump in. If they are relevant, I will get to them then. If they're not relevant, I'll gather them all together and jump on the end. So what you're seeing here, we do this every month. This is part of our monthly pool of our data for our reports. When we release reports, we have about a 3 or 4 day lead time in terms of pulling the data, that line in the sand, that snapshot, then collating the report and getting it out. So I've literally just done this yesterday. The report, we are aiming to be early next week to have it in your hands. That's absolutely critical because all of the information and research and data and recommendations has to be timely, it has to be live, it has to be current. We're not relying on last quarter information. It's not taking us 6 weeks to get hold of that information, to collate it, to put it into report format and provide our opinion. It has to be right on the live heartbeat of what's happening. We have seen and been tracking you guys, investors, huge groundswell and momentum of investors using Ripehouse. Queensland, this has been the first month that we've actually seen the Queensland data decrease. The Queensland investor interest has, for the first time in 2016, come down a notch, about 3 or 4% decrease there, which is around 10% of the overall interest for Queensland has come down. That's been just added on to Victoria, which is strengthening it once again. New South Wales has stabilised. It has been decreasing throughout 2016. That has stabilised. Tasmania has been a big benefactor of the Queensland interest moving on. That's coming up, and South Australia has jumped slightly as well. So you can see those there on the pie donut chart. This is another interesting chart. So the investor interest per dwelling, you can see it's extremely high for Tasmania and also for Queensland. Tasmania's on the way up. Queensland has maybe slowed down and stabilised there. And on the right, you can see Moreton Bay is the most popular LGA. City of Brisbane, which has got a lot of suburbs within. Gold Coast, Logan, Frankston, Ipswich, Greater Geelong, Hobart, Wollongong, Morelands, Victoria, Sunshine Coast. Really interesting sort of insights. ACT is sort of right up there. Penrith is and Newcastle are sort of the Sydney-ish area, and obviously Wollongong there as well. So interesting insight. Matt, if you've got a blurry screen, Vera's just mentioned that as well. So a couple of you. Graphics, yep, so a few of you coming through with blurry screens. If that's the case, I did share a link on the chat bar when I started. Try clicking on that link and going through to YouTube to watch the video. You won't actually be able to chat over there, so you might be able to have them both open together. You'll be able to change the resolution on that YouTube video and increase the resolution to try and improve the blurriness if you are having it. Okay, let's move right along. Okay, so this is just a quick preview. Look and monitor the Ripehouse Learning Centre, the dashboard there, ripehouse.com.au/learn for the July report when it hits the desk next week. That's where it will be dropped. But yeah, as I say, quite steady as she goes. There has been some realignment of suburbs, some new entrants into some of our key LGA markets. Having said that, there hasn't been any surprises. It's just been a slight shift in the suburbs within. So there has been some differing opportunities that now exist in our key and typical growth markets for 2016. Okay, I'll just put that YouTube video link up again once again, Kerry. It won't be a second. Let me know if it is received okay. Okay, what you can see here, so I am talking tonight, we're going into some renovate for profit strategies in terms of one of the suburbs that we look at, but generally when we're looking at data and research and trying to find across the country these areas, suburbs and local government areas set for great performance, we are looking for markets that are typically going to outperform the norm. So look for these markets where right here now, which is on the left-hand side, above average performance for the next 1 to 3 years, and then potentially the market's going to slow down and fall back in line with the overall city-wide market. So if we're talking a lot of these satellite areas, say the Gold Coast, lots of really great things happening, the Commonwealth Games, infrastructure, population and employment pressure, it's going to result potentially in above average growth. Until all of those things, price is growing over these 3 years potentially, above and beyond Brisbane and the wider Australian market. That then becomes suddenly expensive based on what is around it, and then price growth may slow down and then fall back in line with Brisbane overall, as an example. So what we're trying to do is really time our, the hockey stick growth. We're trying to buy at that upswing and not have to hold it for that slow no growth period. And we don't want to miss the boat either. We potentially don't want to wait for the market momentum and the real heat to develop with the lower sophisticated investors stumbling through and following. We want to actually use those guys to drive our growth. So it's all about targeting these markets ready for immediate growth right from day one. And that's what we're going to be talking about tonight with some of the suburbs. One thing that you can do, which I'll be showing you how to do in a moment, is target this particular streets in these suburbs that's going to potentially amplify our capital growth. So Ripehouse has got a large data set. We've been tracking for sale, for rent and sold listings since 2011, like a search engine would. We also monitor a lot of other data sets. So we've actually got over 100 different data sets, which you'll actually see a little bit later, all of the data sets that we do have. You can use those. and I'll show you how to do that later, but up until this point, we've actually been doing that on the inside to work out the combinations of all these factors that potentially could result in above average, above and beyond growth for you. The Ripehouse sweet spot, as I've got defined here, if you get that right, that street level purchase right, you're potentially trying to amplify the capital growth of the suburb overall. If you get the 5 factors right, which I'll show you in a moment, you're potentially looking at 21.9% above and beyond relative growth compared to the suburb overall. So it means huge things. Say for Sydney, 10-year projected growth, it would mean $240,000 extra capital growth for that property on an average purchase there, on average house purchase. So getting that street level data right, we've done a lot of back checking and proving that this works, and this is what the average association is, and yeah, it makes a huge difference. I guess probably the way to think about it is if you're living and buying in your suburb that you grew up in and you know very well, you know the streets that potentially are in vogue and out of vogue, the no-go zones, the areas that you wouldn't touch. You can think about the streets that everyone is moving to the area to live in. They are the streets that are most currently in demand. How can you actually target those streets across the country for every suburb? That's what it's all about. Another sort of perspective on this is around what is in the suburb and how may that affect appraised values and growth. So some big 3, we've done a lot of back checking and looking at cafes, shops, schools, parks, hospitals, doctor surgeries, restaurant precincts, etc. It really comes down to shopping, schools, and transport are the big 3 that really affect appraised value. You can see around 1,100 square meters away from the closest major transport hub is optimum. 250 to schools, and up to about 1,300 meters for shopping is okay. This really affects appraised value in suburbs, and also public housing. So we can show you the exact concentration of public housing per street across the country. Public housing has a massive effect on appraised value and potential for growth, up to 25% plus or minus, depending on the level of public housing in the street. So all of that comes together. We look for, in the Ripehouse sweet spot, low public housing in the street, lots of the in-demand property types. So those people coming towards the market to live and potential drive that growth, what are they demanding to live in? A street has to also have above average rent, above average yield, and really strong tenant growth. So when those 5 things are combined, that's when you can start generating those 21.9% average, above average amplified growth outcomes. I have skipped through that quite quickly. I'll show you how you can actually do that quite easily using Ripehouse in a moment. This is a bit of a sum up of our suburbs that we're going to be going into tonight. So the last 2 a little bit later, but let's jump into number 1 right now. So number 1, it's down here in the city of Hobart. It has been featured in one way or another in our reporting since February. When I say that, it's not the whole of Hobart. It's not the whole city of Hobart and surrounding local government areas. It is a very small and specific area within Hobart. We've only seen, I guess I've got this listed here, a very small sliver of strong demand and buy indicators in Hobart. Yeah, we only started in February with West Hobart, and only West Hobart as an area that we would suggest for pending strong demand likely to result in imminent growth. That has occurred. There's been great growth in West Hobart. There's a lot of market heat here now. It's very difficult to acquire. You've got a lot of owner-occupiers and investors falling over themselves, mostly owner-occupiers now. That then moved. It was West Hobart was in our report for around 2 months. It got too heated there. There wasn't enough stock in the Ripehouse sweet spot streets to access. It then moved on to Newtown, Moona, Glenorchy, and then Claremont. It was basically 2 months each, and it rolled outwards. So if those of you that don't know the geography down here in Hobart, West Hobart's right here in the CBD. I'm actually principal place of residence in West Hobart. Right in the CBD, you move 1 suburb out, each one of them along the main commuter hub to the northern suburbs of Hobart. That is where we're seeing very similar buying indicators for imminent growth along that commuter hub north. Not over in city of Clarence, not down in city of Kingborough. It's a very particular slither of Hobart. So when you see the generalizations out in the meter, which I've started to see recently in a lot higher regularity, Hobart's looking great, etc. They leave you asking questions. There's a lot of questions being asked. Hobart, even it's only 200,000 people or slightly over, it's a very diverse market. It falls off very quickly. And then the danger with places like Hobart, you might have a longer period of substandard growth compared to the nation, and then it really does spike. So if you don't get that suburban street level stuff right in somewhere like Hobart, you really could be left holding a lemon, I suppose, for a longer period of time, where you're waiting for that 10-year sort of cycle, which is since 2005, the last time we saw amazing growth. Interestingly enough, I have been speaking, and we have got a joint article coming out with the Real Estate Institute of Tasmania President Tony College. So look out for that. We have been speaking. Tony did some really good, interesting data analysis around the current on-the-ground metrics and data that he is seeing now, comparing that to 2005. So 2005 was actually an amazing year. We had over 40% capital growth in Hobart itself. I think it's, and correct me if I'm wrong, I did see this statistic about 18 months ago, and it caught me by surprise. I hadn't seen it within our own data sets. That over 40% capital growth, that's actually number one for any individual year for a capital city since around 1960s, 1970s. So it's an amazing, coming together of a lot of substandard years to culminate in that year of growth. And he actually related back to 2016 to 2005 and saw a lot of similarities. So obviously, it's a lot more yet to happen to have that growth repeated. But look out for that article, because it's quite interesting to show the time perspective. Okay, just to get you up to speed a little bit, the city of Hobart, we're talking about as in local government area. It's Glenorchy as the suburb, which is actually in the city of Glenorchy, so it's classified back and forth. But this is a suburb we're actually talking about tonight. There are another few options which are discussed in the July edition of the report. Similar, one slightly higher price point with similar yields, slightly harder to acquire property. One a slightly lower price point with higher yields, maybe not quite the growth potential. So there's a few trade-offs there. Glenorchy is a great one. Excellent cash flow across the nation. 6% is quite achievable here for a standard type of property, even up to 6, 7, 7.5% for some of the lower socio stuff, if that's your strategy. Growth is right up there across the country at the moment. You saw investors have sort of already called on it. It's in the top 10 local government areas by interest across the country. I'd give that 4 out of 5 stars. Not much scope for renovation. Quite narrow price disparity. It's very easy to overcapitalize in Glenorchy, so not really that suited to the renovation strategy. Reasonably scarce. I mean, there's not a huge amount of supply side risk with new developments, etc. Having said that, it's not overly close to the Hobart CBD. So you're close. It's around 10 k's there to the north. So you are competing against other areas that are closer to the CBD, where the new properties can be built into there. So I'm not penalising Glenorchy as such. It is a middle ring suburb with not over or overt supply side risk, and a little bit of scope for development. There are some larger blocks coming through which could support 3 townhouses that are positioned on them. Having said that, the margins are quite tight because the resale price for those townhouses into the market, you might struggle to be able to justify the numbers. So there is a potential for it. That may improve if we have a 20% uplift in price over the next 2 or 3 years. That they may bring the numbers in alignment with a development or a small development. As I say, you're sort of having to get out of the heart of Glenorchy to get to the larger blocks to be able to put anything more than an 8-pack or something like that. It's not really suitable for that type of strategy. Okay, look, let's take a deep dive. We're going to try and interpret Hobart and Glenorchy in particular as an expert. I'm going to show you how you get each level of your research in order and in alignment. I'm going to show you how you go from the state into the local government area, into the suburb, into the street, in the property, and how you can get confidence all of the way through to make sure it's all trying to amplify your growth and not take it away. So it's about staying in front of the wave. We want to try and get the beginning of that hockey stick growth, I like to call it. We want to try and beat the heat and the real groundswell of investor and owner-occupier interest that's potentially going to push prices up. We want to try and position ourselves there first. I just want to ask you first, before I jump in there, how much would you think it would be worth to be able to invest in somewhere like Hobart with the great growth potential and yields and uplifting growth potential, and also other areas across the country? So I've got a couple more examples. How much you'd think it'd be worth you to be able to invest there with confidence, like an expert, without paying potentially for a buyer's agent, with less risk than doing it yourself and taking the risk and just acting on gut feel and your individual research, and then to probably, I suppose, avoid the spruiker dilemma or the educator dilemma. So whilst I'm just loading things up and we can jump into the case study, have a bit of a think about how much that would be worth, I suppose, to you with being able to do that and get that confidence, whilst I just put things on pause and change my screen over. Won't be a moment. Okay, I've just switched over screens. This is now the Ripehouse dashboard page. So let me know if you can see that clearly and it has switched over for you. I have started a poll off when we did start this evening around where everyone's living. So 55% of you are in New South Wales, which is always the case. We're always quite strong in Sydney. It seems like you guys are always looking for you've had a lot of growth and upside in the last few years. Where might be the next area set to give you that growth? You might be looking for higher yields to offset some of your cash or equity. Lots of you seem to be looking out across the country, and obviously that investor interest is really turning towards Queensland, and it's staying there at around 40%. But also, yeah, as I mentioned, Victoria and Tasmania are sort of punching above their weight. I have just asked a secondary question now. What is your primary strategy for your next purchase? That's going to gain a lot of relevancy in a moment once I sort of take you through what we can do. But 43% of you are looking for capital growth. 32%. So this is your primary strategy, mind you, guys. So you might have a secondary outcome, but it's really clear to focus on your primary goal that's going to move you towards your property objectives. So in the long term, it might be retirement or net worth or income or lifestyle. Each individual purchase is potentially going to take you on a tangent in one direction, and then you might acquire a few cash flow positive properties to then launch and service a cash flow negative property, but with higher growth upside. And then you might generate that growth to be able to leverage against and do a renovate for profit strategy. So you might sort of go in a progression, but it's focusing and making sure that your primary objective for this property is going to deliver against one of these 5 areas. And I've sort of broken them down into these categories deliberately, in terms of, we have just released an ebook, which is Which Strategy. So check out www.ripehouse.com.au/learn. Their ebook is in there to look at and digest. It helps you understand which strategy might be more appropriate to your outcomes, and making sure that there's cohesion there, and you're not driving towards your outcomes in the wrong direction. When I mentioned scarcity, so scarcity is one, you're talking around the Bondi Beaches, the eastern suburbs of Sydney, the Tooraks, the Camberwells in Victoria, the Ascots or the inner northern indoor Appiles along the river in Brisbane as an example, where there's built-in scarcity in those properties. The price point might be usually higher, the yield might be usually a little bit lower, but you've got a longer, slower burn that's less risk or associated with cycles. It's generally and has had a longer term above average performance compared to the normal, and it's more sensitive to income growth and none of not so many of the normal metrics that might affect the growth market. So when we're talking capital growth, we're looking at 1 to 3 years potentially. Then scarcity, the scarcity aspect might kick in, and if you're looking at a 30-year investment where you have that 1% above average growth every year for the long term, that's where I'm sort of talking there. I hope just to clarify that. Lots of you are mentioning it'll still be very valuable to obviously be able to access and do this quite easily. And a few of you mentioning it'd be worth $250,000, which is, I suppose, how much the properties that we're sort of going to be talking about with Glenorchy would be worth. But look, what you're seeing in front of you is the new and improved Ripehouse dashboard. We are trying to improve the way that the information and resources are structured within Ripehouse. You might see some interesting new elements here. So look out for the investor design your own strategy notification. So when someone jumps in there to design their own strategy, you get notification of it there. And soon you'll actually be able to click on that and view their strategy and the individual suburbs that are recommended. I'll be showing and demonstrating this functionality soon to clarify what it's all about. We've got a lot of great articles that we publish and promote and put together for you to really answer a lot of investor relevant questions for investors, by investors, so it's only relevant to investors. This is your dashboard, so check it every day. We've got new notifications and content coming through. Up the top here, we are dividing the site into learn, locate, acquire, and manage. Go into the Your Portfolio page. You can upload your current portfolio. You can do automated market appraisals, and then there's a bit of advice that can be provided in there around structuring, and then potentially the next strategy that's going to be most appropriate or relevant to you. About tonight, we are going to be jumping into the research tools. That's the tab we're going to be jumping into now. This is where the 5 layers of your research can be linked to and jump to. These are the normal research pages that you're all used to. We have just moved them here via that link in the one spot. And for those of you familiar with the tour graphic, you can visually see how it is all related and what are some of the tick boxes you need to be crossing at each layer of your research. So that's all there. Let's just jump into the State of the States page now. This is live data. So we are constantly going through and recalculating and recalibrating all of our recommendations and algorithms. This property clock information is our own internal algorithms. We are assessing state level, local government area level property clock information, so right down to that local government area level. We are also looking at suburb and local government area market health checks on a rolling daily basis. So this property clock information is live and current as of now. When you're seeing this information, so the heartbeat demonstrates that it is live rolling information, do just take it with a grain of salt, because state level information is way too general to be useful. It really doesn't mean much. What you're sort of looking at a state level in New South Wales, maybe Sydney results and data may be averaged by Wollongong and Newcastle, which then may be even skewed further by the Dubbos and the remote Broken Hills, etc. It's too general. What we can do is, if we're looking at targeting Tasmania, potentially I probably wouldn't start here. I'll be starting at the local government area level or the research and the report level. But let's say, for example, we are looking at Tasmania. It is on 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock on the property clock. It's all looking quite positive from a state level. We can then click on the button that takes us through to the local government area research assistant. This is incredibly powerful. It shows you local government area by local government area data, which is live. We have local government area level property clock information, which allows you to really zoom into those local government areas. Sorry to keep saying it, that are in prime growth or upside phases and not the slowdown or or trough phase. We like to see between 8 and 10 o'clock as the optimum buying window. So you're reasonably confident that things have turned and are moving in the right direction, but you've still got you've got the remaining upswing. The opinion score here, which we can rank the LGAs by, that's basically us. We performed a huge amount of interviews last year with local area experts, so buyers, agents, researchers, valuers, real estate institute members across the country, and then we monitored positive and negative or recommendations of these local government areas, and we collated all that together, and now we update that through sentiment analysis, and constantly updating the positive or negative opinion of a local government area. You can see that it's very heavily weighted towards the city of Hobart. And now our local government area health checks, which we can see at a suburb level as well. This demonstrates the on-the-ground current day-to-day health of that local government area. We've been able to do a lot of back checking, which you can see in a moment. I'm throwing you the keys tonight to be able to do it yourself. A huge amount of back checking. So looking for not previous performance as an illustrator or cue for future performance. There's no relationship between the two, believe it or not. And interestingly enough, we look for things like, are yields for the local government area in the suburb at a high point in the cycle? Does that mean that a lot of people have moved to the area to rent because they're looking for new jobs, or they've been attracted by new jobs? They're renting first because they don't want to buy. They want to see if it's okay for them. So rents have been pushed up, but growth hasn't occurred yet. So yields are also high. So we're looking at a health check there for yield. Are sales volumes trending upwards and stable, which really suggests that stocks is now starting to turn over. People are actually now demanding to buy properties, and are days on market stable or decreasing? So it's sales are not incurring in increasing numbers because there's a lot of new supply or new builds in the market. Days on market, if they're stable as well, it shows that there's no extra or in relative terms, a stable supply side equation too. So when we look at all of these things, we look for more ticks. The more ticks, the better. 4 out of 6 is actually quite good in Hobart. We're at 10 o'clock on the property clock. We've got very strong opinion, 6.6% growth already over the previous 12 months. So it's already started to move. Yields are quite high. You can see how powerful this page is. You can then click on the next question we're asking: in the city of Hobart, which suburb? So it's very difficult. If you're left asking this question, you've only been led part of the way, and usually if you haven't been provided all of the information around local government area, into suburb, into particular types of property in certain streets, you've been primed with information to then ask further questions, and usually you have to pay for the answers to those questions by way of a buyer's agent, or a marketer or educator, or a new off the plan provider, etc. There shouldn't be any questions that are left on the table. You should be able to be confident to be able to then go into the next stage and have the next answer ready and waiting for you. So this is how we've designed the platform here and all the research. So now you've got the local government area weighed up. You've now come in here and you've got a visual representation of the health of each of these suburbs. So you can see the bigger and greener, the wider the growth recommendation is for the suburb, and it's all data. It's all analysis and opinion. There's no guarantees, obviously, but it's trying to weigh them up in order of higher reliability for imminent growth. So you can actually see the individual health checks for that suburb in the same way that you could see it for the local government area. Sorry, I'll just realign that now. I've widened my screen. So you can see the same, you're seeing the familiar ticks and crosses. You can actually click on the advanced metrics tab there, and I'll load that up in the background and see every single metric and incidence of that suburb going back for 5 years. The interest level, so this is a number that's unique to us, and you can remember all those graphs around investor interest before. This is the individual suburb level interest from investors like you using the Ripehouse platform. Investability means how many properties are currently in demand for sale in the Ripehouse SweetSPOT streets. Income means how high are yields, but are the yields achievable because vacancy rates are low and rental volumes are stable. And opinion is the sentiment score, which we've applied now to a suburb. So you can actually go across the country. I will load Glenorchy up there in the background, but you can do another search here and actually search the whole country for all the other big green suburbs, to use that terminology, and stack them up in order. That's how we actually jump in and start formulating our reports. We do suburb by suburb level due diligence to make sure they are stacking up. While that's loading, I am shifting screens because I'm trying to get through this quickly for you and get as much content and information there for you. This is our advanced metrics page. You can actually see all of the data for the suburb. They're in point form. You can see yield information, all in graph form. You can see different rolling information, yield, sold volumes. It's like a stock chart. So this is what we base all of our information and research and the property clock information on, etc. Whilst that's still loading, let me just jump across here into the Glenorchy suburb. So I've clicked on the suburb of Glenorchy. It's loading up now the suburb area. It's going away and finding all current on-market properties. Whilst that's occurring, it's telling us that we have to be focusing on 3-bedroom houses here in Glenorchy. They are currently the most common and in-demand properties. You can see all current for rent properties, recently sold properties. You can do suburb versus suburb analysis. So you can see for the suburbs around Glenorchy, how do yields compare or occupancy type. So Glenorchy is actually yielding quite high compared to Derwent Park and Moona and even Lena Valley in next door. The darker the red, the higher the yield. You've got a lot of suburb level analysis there. You can see all of the 73 properties on the market. You can see the full days on market data for them. Have they been discounted? So this property here has actually been discounted 12% in its sales campaign already. You can actually see all of that listing history, which I'll show you later, and use that in your negotiation. So what it's all about, and this is the real power, so how do you analyse Glenorchy as a local would? Let's find the streets that have the highest public housing numbers. So we've got 11% public housing in Glenorchy by an average. This dark red area here is 31.9% public housing. Up here in the south, southeast, over 30%. We've generally seen, and we've correlated, as you saw before, the relationship between public housing and appraised value. Anything over 15% is generally going to start affecting street appeal, tenant demand and reliability, and potential for stable or above average growth. So I look for under 15% public housing. You can see exactly where the owners, owner occupiers or the tenants that are living. So darker yellow, lots of tenants, darker green, lots of owner occupiers. Exactly where houses or units are preferred, where the higher rents are, where the higher yields are. So higher yields down here in the south towards the shopping and the main commuter hub, which is this highway through here. A patch of lower yields through the middle, which might be the owner occupier clusters, and then high yields up through the new build subdivisions through up here. Just as I do know the terrain there quite well. Instead of getting your pen out and trying to track all of these things suburb by suburb, if you can remember back, we do make things easier. There are 5 factors that we look for on a street by street level. You can click on the Ripehouse sweet spots. You can play around with this to your heart's content, but you can quickly click on the capital gains badge and view the 4 areas that have automatically been selected for you. These are the areas that potentially are going to really drive growth forward for the suburb overall. There are a few other arguments for this area next door here, and so you can adjust that and find some more potential. Then you can jump in and actually filter properties. So you only want to see the properties that are currently on the market, 3-bedroom houses, most in demand in those key streets, and quickly get down to a much shorter number or shorter list of properties. So you're trying to, if you're looking at Hobart as well as Geelong, as well as Moreton Bay, as well as Wollongong, you're looking at 2 or 3 key suburbs in each of those areas. You want to be able to target in and focus on those absolute stellar deals very quickly, and that's what it's all about. So Ripehouse helps you to do that very quickly and easily. Then you can appraise properties like for like, and form your value assessment, I suppose, on other properties in similar street locations as opposed to in the higher public housing areas, etc. A lot of calculations going on there, and I'm doing a few things with the internet connection tonight, so I do apologise. That's just going away and doing a lot of calculations in the background. What we've seen here, I'm just switched tabs over again. This is the list of our biggest, greenest suburbs across the country. We've got a lot of focus around the Brisbane area. As I said, that we are deriving a lot of our recommendations into the report from here. Some through Sydney, so only a couple. Dubbo, regional New South Wales. None, interestingly enough, in South Australia, Western Australia, ACT Northern Territory in this particular page. If you're looking for areas that haven't really become in vogue yet, but the data and the numbers are outstanding, then you can go into our undercover strategy recommendations, which might be more to your liking. There are quite a few Western Australian suburbs that are strengthening now. I have had a few questions today from people asking around Western Australia. There are a few in the undercover, so you haven't got the interest and you haven't got the public positive sentiment yet, but you've got some good, strong market health emerging, which are undercover suburbs. Yeah, so we've got our list now down to 5 properties. One here, 25 Kensington Street, is it's now ranked in order of price. On the market for 235, it's already been discounted by 9%. Some signs of distress in the vendor already. It's been on the market for almost 4 months. They've discounted it by 9%. Our algorithms have assessed the condition of the property is in good condition. That's going to help in finding other comparables which are similar. So it started off life at 260, now down to 235. You've got suburb and area level information there for you. It will then go away and find your top 5 comparables and then do a full appraisal on the property for you. So it's an absolute end-to-end solution. I might spend a little bit more time later doing an appraisal for a property. I do encourage you, as a bit of a tip, always absolutely own the process of forming your comparables. It's not good enough to just get a generic off-the-shelf automated report for a property. You can see here that the 5 most likely to be comparable properties are ranging between 197 and 255. Is this one for 197 inferior? If it is inferior, you remove it and you replace it, and make sure that you've got 5 comparables to form your appraisal which are accurate. This platform and the interface here makes that really easy for you to do. Yeah, when you actually appraise a property, it will average those 5 that you've seen as the most primary comparables, and then it will actually run it through a series of adjustments based on the street location. So is the distance to school, shopping, transport optimum? As you can remember back to those growths, low public housing around. So asking prices 240, 235, sorry. Original appraisal was 240. Based on the actual street location, we're seeing a final appraisal of 245. If you've got any questions at any time around appraisals, just click on the Ask Ripehouse button. It will come through to us directly, and we're happy to give you a second opinion. So you can see how we're trying to support you. We're investors, and our staff are investors trying to help other investors and empower ourselves, I suppose, for better results. So I'm just going to leave that there. I have got through a lot there, and I do apologise. I will be forwarding through a recording so you can really dissect what I've said and how I've done it later. I do try and get as much content through and out each webcast, so I do apologise. I'd love to hear your feedback around what you've just seen and how you think it might be useful. If you can use chat, it'd be really great if you could do that. It's always interesting to see how what individuals and investors think about the software. We're always trying to improve. Look, what you've yeah, I'm sorry. This was my placeholder to move into the live example, but Ripehouse is all about giving confidence and clarity and results. So I'm going to be going into the two next growth areas in a moment, but I just wanted to talk quickly around. I did ask the question: how much do you think it would be worth to be able to invest in places like Hobart or around Brisbane, or anywhere across the country, like an expert? So using the software and research tools that you've just seen there, do you think a buyer's agent or a typical average buyer's agent fee a little bit less? A little bit less. I'm just trying to work out, what it would be worth to you to be able to do this over and over and over again for every property purchase. Just want to tell you a little bit about Guy Williams, because Guy, he's actually doing a little bit of work with us to get some great content out to you guys to help in his journey and how he does it. There is a case study on the Frontier Investor about Guy, so look out for that within your dashboard. Guy's actually used Ripehouse to buy 10 properties in the first 10 months of using Ripehouse. So that's throughout this year. He's just come up to the end of his first year. These are actual numbers, and all of the data, all of the properties are covered in the case study over on the Frontier Investor. Average capital growth per annum for each of these 10 properties was 25% annualized. His average yield was 6.25%. So you can see a lot of these properties that you've got to quite quickly tonight. These are Guy Williams type properties. Some of the other more expensive properties later on are not really appropriate to him. He's got a 250 or 300K maximum. He's all about yield. He's bought 10, no further per transaction cost. So it's one subscription for the year. That is then for each of these subsequent 10 properties. That's all included in the subscription. I'm just saying that and clarifying it. Guys had some amazing results this year, because generally Ripehouse is available as an annual subscription. It's usually available to the public for $997. I'd love to, as a big thank you for joining. I am going into further suburbs and analysis later, and you guys can stick around for some Q&A, etc. And I'm happy to field questions individually and ongoing. But I did want to make this as a big thank you offer. Just whilst we are here and you're taking the time to learn and listen and get involved in Ripehouse and research, I'd love to extend an offer of $200 off that price of $997 to join you all up together. Get involved. We can start moving together and invest in the second half of 2016. I have just added a pop-up on the right-hand side of your screen, which you can literally click on that Join Us button right now and go off into the bonus page, entering your personal basic details, credit card information, which is securely provided by Stripe, and lock in that $200 discount. Yeah, I'm just going to leave that there, and I have got the price of $1,597 crossed out, because what I'm about to show you in a moment is going to really change the way you potentially can find suburbs to invest in. You can play around. We've thrown you the keys to learn and strategize and change your strategy, and then we're opening up other experts in the country whom you respect, quantifying their secret sauce, their strategies, and you're able to piggyback on that and then even improve upon it. So we are rolling out all of the extra new functionality, which will be included for this price tonight. This is the last time that Ripehouse is going to be priced at this amount. It is going to be changing, and you can see the future price there. So this is the last opportunity to be able to access Ripehouse for this price going forward. So let's jump in now and start talking through what we're actually going to be rolling out in a moment. We are going to be talking to the next area. It is in the city of Geelong, a satellite area of Melbourne, Victoria. We have also been talking about Geelong since Christmas time. It's been in our report since the beginning of the year. The buying window in these suburbs, when that does appear in our report, is usually around 2 months. So we are trying to get in there before the hockey stick growth occurs. That's then caused by the groundswell of less sophisticated investors who don't access technology and the upside that it involves. They are then creating the growth that you're actually benefiting from. So we want to try and get in their optimum buying window. It started off in Geelong in the upper and medium socio-economic areas of Geelong, so Newtown, Belmont, into Hamlin Heights, Manifold Heights, and it's trickled down, as it has in Hobart, month by month into Corio. So Corio has now emerged. You can get in there for around $250,000, $280,000, $290,000 for a good size block that you potentially could split and put 3 townhouses in. This is slightly lower on the cash flow, slightly higher on the growth, slightly better on renovation, but a little bit strong on the development side. So it's a little bit of a different mix. It's on the train line in Geelong, so a lot of people are coming towards Geelong to potentially live and even commute into Melbourne. So we're liking a lot of things in Geelong at the moment. Let's jump in and have a look at the individual data for Geelong. Before I do, this page, which I'm showing you now, let me know if you can see it or not. So if you can remember back to your new dashboard, you've got the Learn Center, you've got the Locate, so you've got all of your research pages. What we're actually rolling out is being able to stand on the shoulders of giants. So you can actually leverage strategies by other experts in the country. We've got a scorecard, which is capital growth, cash flow, scarcity, renovation, or development. Each expert may be more relevant to a particular strategy. I'll click on myself there. It's going to load up a page where it actually weights and assesses that expert's strategy. It quantifies it there for you. We have mapped out, based on historic performance and the strategy specifically, estimated return on investment and how that is actually derived. Is it from growth, cash flow, renovation? We've actually gone through, and my personal secret sauce, which we've back checked and really proved, I've documented the secret sauce. I might skip down to the bottom here. So more than 72 sales in the year, sales volumes trending upwards over the last year, vacancy rates under 1.5%, yield trending upwards over last year. Sorry if this all sounds quite confusing. I like to see days on market under 120 days, between 33 and 66% tenants, and a market health, as you saw before, above 3 out of 6. If all of those things are in alignment, it's actually going out and constantly monitoring and finding There's 19 suburbs currently satisfy those requirements. You can see exactly where they are. You can see a snapshot of the individual properties that are on the market in those suburbs. What it's actually done, it's gone over the last 15 years for every suburb in the country and found when that strategy was satisfied every single month. And when that strategy was satisfied, it's found 41 incidences of that occurring. That's there. In the next 3 months after those 41 instances, you can expect minus 0.7% growth. So it's just trying to hit that stable time, and then it shoots off like a rocket. So I've really played around with this strategy and the numbers to then pinpoint in the next year after a purchase in one of these suburbs, you can expect as an average 19.4%. So you're starting to talk around the numbers that Guy is achieving. If you get that street level stuff right, you can potentially amplify that 19.4% and put that extra little bit on top. And then you can start really seeing how these Guy type suburbs can be delivered over and over again. So I've derived my secret sauce. This is the strategy. You can literally click on and see the strategy for yourself. There's no hiding. You can view and see all of the rules that are used. If you can think back, these are actually all of the rules that I programmed in, and then they can modify it. If you want to change that strategy at all, you can actually do that. And then you can pick from over 100 other variables to add into the rules and to then change the strategy and see if that works. So you can go at the state level, into the local government area level as an example. Is the local government area's actual or trending? Let's use trending population as an example. Is population in the local government area trending upwards? I'm just rushing through this quite quickly, by 2% in the year. And then you can add that as a rule to your strategy. It's going to go away and find all those suburbs. I'll take a lot of these rules off, and we'll just use a really basic one for now. And this will show you how simple it all is. This interface, we will be rolling this out. So put your hand up if you'd like me to add it to your account as a beta. I'd love to get your feedback and have you starting to play with it. Let's just look in Queensland. We're going to limit things just for ease to Queensland. So we've got Queensland with local government area population trending upwards in the previous 12 months. And I want sales volume to be above 6 per month. So I don't want suburbs that don't really turn over. Even just based on these rules, let's go away and see which suburbs currently are satisfied. And I'll also want to try and calculate the expected growth based on all of the previous instances where this has actually come and occurred. So there's a lot of things going on here in the background. If you've just got literally those 3 rules, you could have added hundreds more, or you could really just play around with it. We've found 1,080 month incidences where that's actually been the case, where those 3 things have been satisfied. You can see a very strong correlation between population and imminent and immediate growth. And there's currently 34 suburbs that you can click on and view those suburbs in the radar page and go straight in and potentially invest in them. We've got an amazing array of variables that you can actually assess. Things like yield, days on market, occupancy type, property type, has public housing changed. We've got all of your ripple effect information inside the suburb in question, all around it. We've got 5-year growth. We've got price spread between unrenovated and renovated. Huge amount of data. That's all available in actual terms, in trending terms, in suburb or LGA level. You can compare it. Is that metric at a high point typically for that suburb overall, or is it just at above a certain number? You can really go to your heart's content here, and I'd love to see and you guys get involved. So I'll be throwing you the keys to that in the next couple of days, and that's all included in your annual subscription, only to members and subscribers. And you can see here with those particular suburbs, population have been going through the roof recently. You can see the LGA of Ipswich has been outstanding. A few here through Gladstone where the population's been going through the roof and sales volumes have been happening really strongly. So there's really only 2 LGAs where population growth has been above average lately. You can really quickly get in and see them. It's incredibly powerful. I'd love to hear your feedback in the chat. Bill's just asked if you can export the data to Excel or CSV. You can't. It's all in the platform, but you can actually leverage that data to really drive through your complete or your investment outcomes. And yeah, lots of you asking to be added for better, and I'll get through all of that and get you started straight away. Look, let's jump back to Geelong. We have gone on a bit of a tangent, and I do apologise. We are looking for Corio in Geelong. It is one of our undercover strategy suburbs. Not many people talking yet around. Sorry, I'm just using the wrong page here. Not really many people talking yet around Corio or Geelong. There's actually $6 billion worth of public and private spending happening in the LGA, an outstanding local government area. You've got an airport just around the corner, the Avalon Airport, and you've got the Ford plant closed a few years ago, which a lot of people thought may affect obviously demand and employment in the area, but it's actually had a flip effect where the local government themselves and the council have used it as an excuse to gentrify the city overall. So had a lot of that lower socio-economic employment taken through the market, and now it's been replaced with a lot of people potentially living in Geelong to then commute to Melbourne itself and then Avalon Airport. So Corio's on the lower socio-economic side. You've got to be careful because there's a lot of supply and new properties being built over here in the green area. You've got the train line, which is very close, important to be near. You've got down here in the bottom left-hand corner, between 219 to 281,000 is the estimated unrenovated to renovated price disparity. So quite good upside there. You could potentially buy for 220, spend 15, 20,000, and then try and push the property towards 281,000 is an example. So that's quite a large price disparity. You can actually use all of the rules set there to actually find suburbs that have a wide price disparity, which then, as you can see, will be then more appropriate to renovate for profit strategies. Corio is one. Let's find the sweet spots here very quickly. I would be avoiding probably over here towards the major highway, and that's where a lot of the new supply is coming in. I would be focusing on these two sweet spot areas here, closer to the Princess Highway and Steed Park, which is around the college and the shopping area. So these are the two Ripehouse sweet spot streets that I'll definitely be focusing on. Public housing, there are an area, 63% public housing. That would have a dramatic effect on street appeal. Generally, you're going to have a lot of foot traffic between public housing and the local shops. So you've just got to have a bit of a concern. If we were investing between the public housing and the shops, I might be a bit concerned. In this case, it does look like they might bypass this area to invest. Just to be really safe, it might be worth investing on the other side of this main road here in Corio. Let's quickly go. So the actual third suburb that I'm going to be talking around tonight is in the city of Brisbane. We have got a number of suburbs in the city of Brisbane in our report. There's quite a few different there's quite a few different suburbs that do qualify quite highly in our big greens and in the report. Geebung is one which I've been monitoring for about 18 months. It's just come back into alignment. It is very relevant for a renovate for profit strategy. Cash flow not so hot. Growth fundamentals are good to very good. Scarcity development is not really your play. It's renovate for profit with growth on the back end in Geebung. And I've mentioned it in here because it's a slightly higher price point to a lot of the other suburbs that we generally see. So let's go into Geebung, and I'll just go quickly into the types of property to target and the individual streets. Lots of questions come through, so I'll get to those at the end. I'm trying to get through things, and I am aware that I've gone over time quite a bit, so I do apologise. Okay, that's just loading up there in a second. All right, so we've got 3-bedroom houses, the most common in Geebung. We've got some areas of public housing here. We do have a train line that runs through. Very low public housing. Even though these areas are shaded red, it is relevant to the suburb overall. We've only got 1% public housing, and the dark red areas still only have 2% public housing. So no concerns there at all with public housing. Where are the higher yields? So maybe on the north side of the train line, is probably where to target, and then over here towards Aspley is also a high yielding yellow area shaded. Let's just find quickly the sweet spot streets. There is only this one large area which is on the northern side. It does look like to be an industrial area, so I might just zoom that back out again. So each of these street areas are 200 dwellings or less. we may need to wear slightly less tenant demand in this suburb because we do have a renovate for profit strategy. It may be worth actually lowering our tenant requirements. If you can remember back to that strategy, accepting down to about 25% tenants, it's going to help us find these properties, renovate for profit. And we can see that we've actually suddenly now got 3 properties on the market there. So let's just have a quick look at these types of properties. We are looking for a 3-bedroom house. While this just loads, it does look like it's a unit number there. So I might just use the list here, excuse me. Whilst this is actually doing it, I might actually also load. We can see here in our big green chart the city of Brisbane. So let's do a bit of a search here because we have got some suburbs also in and around that area. So Clayford is one. We've got Algester. We've got Red Hill and Nogra. So all in and around the same area within Brisbane. We do have a lot of these suburbs as well subject to supply side risk. So we've got a lot of new apartment builds happening through Brisbane area. We've got a lot of oversupply in those markets with units. It might not necessarily affect houses themselves, but that might throw things out quite a bit with units. So it is a bit of an asterisk. Even though they're potentially appearing here as a big green, we do vet them like that and look at supply side risk before we include them in our report. There is a bit of supply side risk occurring through Moreton Bay, which is right up here in the top suburbs in the country, according to our metric. Yeah, there is a bit of supply side risk, which may draw asterisks next to Narangba and Griffins, etc. So I'm just talking, you know, that's covered in the report as terms of full disclosure. I might just pop that on pause there and go back because I'll get through to the end and I can come back here and actually answer or ask individual questions. So there are a lot of questions coming through. So I'll put that on pause and I'll go back to the slides because I will come through now to the end and get to the Q&As because it would be great to start getting to some of these questions, which a lot of you are coming through and asking. Look, so this is the last access. I'm just mentioning once again to this price. It is available only, and Ripehouse is only available as an annual subscription paid up front. Just to answer a couple of questions there. We do that because we invest quite heavily in building the product and all of the support services to support you over a year period, getting you confident and sure and you're certain and clear in your decision making and your ability to actually find properties when the time comes. So it's worth getting involved on a month-by-month basis, processing our research reports, coming and joining our monthly strategy webcasts, proving to yourself, and we can vet and score and tick each property that you bring to us in those events, and making sure you're actually in line with what your outcomes are and proving to yourself that you can actually source these properties. And that's a year-long process, so that's how we design our subscriptions. We are rolling out, as you've seen, and this is only the absolute, scratching the surface. You're able to design your own strategies. You're able to back check it and prove to yourself that, yes, this is likely to grow. You're able to then improve upon other people's strategies. You're able to track experts and leverage their strategies for your own good. You're able to then go in and manage your portfolio. So that's rolled out and available now. You can load up all of your individual properties. And we are rolling out in the next week or so the ability to actually purchase and acquire properties. So not actually facilitating the payment or anything like that, obviously, but just a project management piece where you can actually navigate the terrain of the purchase. What do you need to do when? We're really trying to help you as investors with each of these 4 stages. So plenty more. We're always constantly trying to improve the product and listening to you guys to improve in line with what your needs are and make it, and empower you as an investor. We're trying to do that together. So this is, as mentioned, we're coming up to the end of the financial year. This is the last opportunity to access this price and property. We will be changing our pricing structure, including and considering all of the extra features, etc. You will have access to all of the new features, etc. with this price point and subscription level. None of that will change. You're going to be rolled out with everything that everyone else will be. But for the guys that don't get in on the party this financial year, the price point will be very different. Okay, just mentioning that Ripehouse is used and spoken of very highly by lots of other people in the industry. So investors, buyers, agents, educators, and researchers. A lot of people use it to really drive their investment decisions, whether they're professionals or serious or amateur investors, really trying to help and make clear and concise decisions. I just want to I've got the Guy case study over in the Frontier Investor. It's really worth going through that in great detail. A lot of really interesting, we've got 4 or 5 articles from Guy now around how he does it and all of the things around how he manages properties, how he negotiates, how he structures his finances, how he searches and researches. It's all there. Yeah, Ross actually had some really good results in Moreton Bay when it was in our report, January, February. This property in particular, so 3 or 4 bedroom, this is a 4-bedroom house, is now 355 to 360. There's been a huge amount of investor interest in these types of properties, very strong demand on the ground. Rents went through the roof. Now yields are actually decreasing again because growth has been very strong. Ross was able to negotiate and beat that heat in this market to 310 and profit all the way through to now, which I would estimate back in March, I did an appraisal at around 340. My opinion on this property would be around 360 now, 355, and strong yields on the back of it. So another next property, this is one of the guys, one of the 10. So guys actually bought through Moreton as well. This is all based on our research and reports from February, March. He's had good results. Very strong yields already. Just a couple of examples around how other investors use the platform. Just wanted to reiterate once again, this special offer is only available for tonight, and it's not going to be repeated at this price because you can see all the changes that we're going to be rolling out. And I'd love to, as a big thank you for those of you that are not going to stick around for the Q&A, a big thank you for joining us, and this offer is available to you till 11 o'clock tonight. You can lock it in right now by jumping over to www.ripehouse.com.au/bonus. This is massive value. It's never been offered before. Just to show our commitment to really stepping and standing by your side month after month for all the 12 months. We're including our 12 monthly research reports, which are generally priced at $97. We are providing every month of those included in this price. There's a total value there of $1,164. You can literally jump into the Learning Centre in Ripehouse and you can see these and buy those off the shelf. They are provided to you every month. And then you actually, using those reports to find and source suburbs, you're proving to yourself that you can do them. You can jump into our monthly group coaching event. So it's like a webcast where you can bring your properties along and find and get our opinions for them. That's then synced back. So you're doing this on a monthly process. And that's all included to support you going through for the year. And that's what it's all about with an annual subscription. So this is a very relevant time of the year to make this comment, but in some individual circumstances, so do check with your accountant, Ripehouse can be claimed as an educational expense against your investment property income. So very relevant. Get in before the end of financial year so it can potentially be tax deductible. That amount potentially can be tax deductible against your investment property income. Look, this little graphic here on the left is actually a screenshot from that bonus page. You click on that green button, it will then bring you to the sign up page. It will pre-fill a coupon code which locks in that price. You just enter in your basic details, click on the subscribe button, enter in your secure credit card information, which is powered and secured by Stripe. We have live chat, phone and email support at any time. We'll get back to you and it's investors helping you. And this is all available through www.ripehouse.com.au/bonus. So jump over to there now. I'd love to get you all involved and really start moving with you straight away. That's how you can lock that in. I'm just going to put the mic on mute for a moment. I'll gather up all of these questions. There's been a lot tonight. I'm trying to get them where they are relevant to the masses. Individual questions I'll jump on after the call with you one-on-one and start going through them individually if they are quite relevant to you. So if those of you that don't want to stick around, a huge thank you. I hope you've got a lot out of this evening, found it really interesting, beneficial, and really helped you understand the investment landscape and step up for great results going forward. So thank you once again. I'll put things on mute for a minute or so and I'll be back on the other side with Q&A. Okay, I'm going to go through them top to bottom, just for ease. There have been a lot of questions. Bertram's asked, "Can I get 3?" I'm assuming the reports. Can I get access to 3 of them? Look, I am happy to, if you are interested, to have a few back copies as well to get you started, just so you can put things in context. You've obviously got the June edition right now, and then you've got every month for the 12 months ongoing included as part of this subscription offer. Joe has asked, so this is literally as they're coming through, I'm just going through them. There's about 30, 40 questions. Joe's just asked, where in the Moreton area did Guy buy his properties? Guy's actually away overseas at the moment, so he's not here to defend himself, and he might not like me disclosing that. He did actually buy that property in question in the suburb of Caboolture itself. A lot of investor interest and people using the Ripehouse platform, and a lot of our data was pointing to a very specific area in Morayfield, close to the business park, which has been built, and the $110 million marina, very close to all of that. So it's a lower socioeconomic area and gentrifying very strongly compared to the rest of Moreton Bay. That's where a lot of investor activity has been happening through Ripehouse over the last 6 months. A lot of amazing results already happening. Helen's, I hope you don't mind, Helen, if I just quote you directly. You have been giving some really nice feedback today around the new dashboard functionality, but Helen said, we've almost held our sweet spot probably for 60 days and has made us $20,000 growth. Awesome. I'd love to, if you PM, if you're comfortable, we were telling people where that is. I'm happy to do that, and maybe how many bedrooms and even what you paid for it, what the yield might be. Yeah, we've used a buyer's agent, but would not buy until they found us a property in the Ripehouse sweet spot. It's awesome to hear. Yeah, Zane's just curious about the opinion score, and secondly, reads the subscription. It is a once-off fee, and it's charged in full tonight. It is, yeah. So jump over onto the bonus page. I'm available for questions individually. Opinion score. So it is normalised across the country. We do have opinion scores for local government area and suburb. And I suppose a really good example was last year we spoke to Malcolm Gunning, the Real Estate New South Wales president. He's actually a contributor and a feature contributor over on our Frontier Investor. So the frontierinvestor.com.au, it's our research and content portal. Having a talk to Malcolm, so he's got a finger on a lot of pulses across the whole of New South Wales. It was really interesting seeing what he was feeling we're going to be delivering growth in the second half of 2015 into 2016. He nominated Tweed into Byron Bay as a standout, Newcastle, and then I think Parramatta and Wollongong from memory. Correct me if I'm wrong on the Parramatta. There was an area in and around that western suburbs of Sydney. He was able to then collate and normalise it across the whole state. Then you drive down and you talk to individual buyers agents and local area experts in the Tweed area, and then they can talk to you about individual suburbs. And if we did that, we actually had over 150 interviews, believe it or not, across the country. We're able to really normalise what people say and how they gauge growth potential and determine the likelihood of their opinion being on the mark, or was it jaded, or was it personal opinion. So we're able to normalise that, and that gave us a really nice baseline to then monitor news and research sources to then update and make our opinion score quite, it's done on a monthly basis. It's very relevant and it's normalised across the country. I hope that answers your question. Ben Lee, Logan, Helen, so that's where the purchase was occurred, 6% yield. That's a really awesome result. I'm going down, and once again, I do apologise if it's back and forth. How did you get the expert strategy methods page on Ripehouse? So Haley, that is a page we haven't opened up yet. I'll let you know as soon as we are, and that's only going to be available to the Ripehouse subscribers. So yeah, what you've seen in terms of the new functionality, etc., I will be rolling it out to those of you who put your hand up for beta, and you can play to your heart's content, and then it will be rolled out and it is only available to subscribers. Okay. One question in the suburb area is square kilometres. Is that referring to the size of the suburb, so the actual land area size of the suburb overall? We have a few metrics that you can filter using your design your own strategy. So you have number of dwellings, size in terms of square kilometers, and then density. So you can actually search based on those different metrics, which may move you towards higher density. You can also then filter suburbs based on distance to CBD, and then price disparity compared to neighbours, so your ripple effects, etc. You can filter and find suburbs that match all of those requirements. Okay, lots of you around the fuzziness, etc. Must have occurred at a certain point. That will be addressed and provided. There will be a recording coming through for you guys. Your historical rental prices for an address, where they exist, Joe, so we've been tracking that since 2011. You can see traditional and historic rental prices. We go off, as Google does, as a search engine, and we go across and find any property for sale, for rental, sold listing across the country, and we're doing that every day. And every single day we're going back and we're back checking and improving and recalculating our algorithms to make sure that they're all relevant. And this is a really important point. So all of the recommendations and decisions that you're making within the Ripehouse platform are based on live data. You're not looking at a report that has been written on previous quarter information and taking 8 or 10 weeks to collate and get out to you. That's then, and in a lot of these cases, coming in and if you're digesting that, you're basically coming into the market with a large group of others, and they're the people that you want to get in first before and use them to generate your growth. That's what it's all about. To do that, you have to literally be seeing the absolute first source of this information and be the first one to get eyeballs on a reliable growth recommendation. Okay. Okay, Joe's just asking, do we use any other research sources? So we've gone to great lengths to own all of our own data sets. So we've actually been accumulating and buying and having our own stuff to great lengths in some cases. We had incredible difficulty with crime data. Finding that down to a local government area level to start with was very difficult. Tasmania doesn't provide it from government sources. We had to go to academic sources to find crime data per LGA. New South Wales, as an example, is amazingly open and transparent with that. So it does change across state by state. Public housing data. So some of our data sets are based in ABS 2011 land, which is obviously 5 years out of date. We have been moderating it and normalizing that data every 6 months since. So we've got a true and probably the truest sense of public housing information across the country for any data set. So every 6 months per LGA, we're going out, seeing if they're changing LGA policy, if they're sold out public housing enclaves or they're building new ones, and updating that manually. Obviously, we're missing some individual properties, so we've actually been estimating that our public housing data is now plus or minus 3% from that original number. Still great to make your purchase decisions, etc. It's still going to get you in that band of 15%, which has got a little bit of buffer, but it's definitely going to highlight to you the areas that are up in the 50, 60, 70%. The absolute no-go zones are going to be very clear, and that's down to the street level. Okay. So there's still quite a few questions, but they're all mixed in with okay, so I will sort of have to go through that in a bit more time. Okay, Susan's just asking around the coaching sessions. So those month-long coaching sessions, it is with myself and my staff jumping on there to help. I am happy you've got my email address to field questions directly and get you moving in the software as soon as, really, really quickly. So you can bring your, we basically go in those sessions end to end and go through one-on-one with you with your individual property, talking through the positives and negatives. Is it going to achieve your outcomes against your strategy? Is it derived from our research, the report, looking at all the pluses and negatives to really help you and give you the confidence to make decisions. So technology is all well and good, and all of the research and platforms, etc., that you've seen is all great. If it doesn't get you closer to making clear and concise decisions, that's what it's all about. you don't in terms of analysis paralysis, or going to one seminar after another and not getting any closer. Technology really needs to empower you, and get you making and moving towards decisions. Another question coming in around the opinion score. So a typical range or scale, it's not necessarily, it's basically the higher the better. It's always changing per month, so it's not out of 100. We've got around about 90% of suburbs don't actually have an opinion score. It's normalized down to 0. Anything lower than 0, it's just not counted. Yeah, you can basically go in and you can filter and view the whole country at once. So you can look at that LGA analysis page across the whole country. You can see the top opinion scores right down to all of those that have a 0 score. I think the city of Brisbane, from memory, has the highest opinion score. It's around 460, but you can see the relationships and the changes based on that. So it's really anything with an opinion score at the current moment of around 80 or above is very positive sentiment. Those ones, so the secret's out. 450 with the city of Brisbane. It's obviously a large LGA, but the secret's out. You've obviously got a huge amount of investors across the country been investing heavily in Queensland over and over. You've got the new stock, etc., emerging and in that market. It's monitoring the local government areas that are potentially increasing, around that 80 to 150 opinion score at current numbers. Potentially you've got some positive momentum there, and not the whole country eyeballs on it. Okay, you can search for any property not that's advertised privately or not available on the internet. So you can add a property, perform all of the same appraisals and street level analysis on that. If you own a property, you'd like to do your back checking, etc., that can all be done. Sounds great. I might leave it there, guys. I'll stay on the line and chat with you individually in the chat bar if you like. Otherwise, jacob.field@ripehouse.com.au if you've got any questions. Thank you so much for joining us. I hope you've got something out of it. I'd love to hear your feedback around the new functionality. And I'll talk to you soon. Once again, at www.ripehouse.com.au/bonus. It'd love to see you on board and get you moving together.